They watch you move, and they can't make sense of it. You call things before they happen, and it rattles them. They wonder how you could possibly see the storm before the clouds form. They assume there must be some secret, someone whispering in your ear, a hidden advantage that isn't visible. The truth is simpler. You learned to read the world while they were busy distracting themselves. You studied silence, patterns, habits. Where they only saw random chaos, you saw the hidden rhythm. And because you paid attention when they wasted time, you earned foresight they will never hold. That is why your predictions cut them so deeply. They reveal how blind they've been all along. There's psychology behind this skill. Most people are addicted to impulse. They react instead of reflect. They chase feelings instead of analyzing causes. They repeat mistakes because they refuse to notice their own patterns. You broke that cycle. You slowed down long enough to recognize that people are more predictable than they like to admit. Their words reveal insecurities. Their routines reveal priorities. Their reactions reveal weaknesses. When you started piecing these fragments together, you didn't just understand individuals. You understood systems. That knowledge turned into precision, and that precision looked like magic to those who never bothered to pay attention. They laugh at you when you stay quiet, when you sit back instead of rushing into noise. But your silence isn't emptiness. It's storage. You're collecting information they don't even realize they're giving away. Every sigh, every hesitation, every careless move adds to your library. Later, when you speak or act with precision, they think it came out of nowhere. It didn't. It came from patience. And patience is something they will never master, because patience requires faith that the right move will reveal itself if you wait long enough. That is why you can predict outcomes while they stumble into them blindly. In relationships, this precision becomes your greatest shield. While others are blinded by charm, by words, by grand displays, you notice the tiny cracks. You see when someone's affection feels rehearsed. You sense when their silence is filled with calculation. You recognize when loyalty is genuine and when it is performance. That awareness keeps you from drowning in illusions. People may accuse you of being cold, detached, even paranoid. But those accusations are defenses, because deep down they know your precision exposes what they try hardest to hide. And once you've seen truth clearly, no mask can ever fool you again. In self-growth, predictions are not about telling the future. They're about knowing yourself so deeply that nothing outside can shake you. You anticipate your weaknesses, so you prepare for them. You anticipate your triggers, so you avoid them. You anticipate your habits, so you sharpen them. That's what separates you from the rest. They fall into the same traps because they refuse to acknowledge their shadows. You stare at your shadows until they lose their power. That is why you can navigate storms while they sink in puddles. Your foresight doesn't come from arrogance. It comes from brutal honesty with yourself. They feel uncomfortable when you laugh in moments where others would panic. They mistake it for arrogance, but it is clarity. You already saw this moment coming. You already rehearsed it in your mind. You already accepted the pain, the challenge, the betrayal before it arrived. That is why you don't break when it hits. You adjusted long before. They are rattled because their illusion of surprise doesn't work on you. You predicted the punch, and because of that, it lands with less power. They realize their biggest weapon, chaos, cannot pierce someone who has already mapped the battlefield. There is cruelty in precision because it strips illusions bare. They want to believe they're mysterious, that no one could possibly rid them. But your predictions tear down their walls. You don't just know what they will do, you know why they will do it. That unsettles them more than anything else, because it shows them how transparent they really are. They start running background checks, trying to figure out how you know so much, never realizing the truth is simpler. You know because they've been telling you all along without realizing it. The lesson in this is not to flaunt the gift. Power loses its weight when it is shown recklessly. Precision is most dangerous when it is quiet. You don't need to prove to anyone that you can see their next step. Let them walk right into it. Let them underestimate you while you're already waiting at the finish line. That is why your foresight matters more than their confidence. It's rooted in discipline, not performance. You don't gamble. You calculate. And calculation always outlasts impulse. In life, this kind of clarity isn't built overnight. It comes from surviving, from studying, from deciding you won't stumble through existence like everyone else. It comes from the willingness to question everything. Your habits, your beliefs, your relationships. They owned you when you were distracted. They lost you when you chose awareness. That choice separated you forever, because most people prefer illusions. You chose precision, and precision always feels supernatural to those who don't understand the work behind it. You walked away from arguments that begged for your reaction, not because you couldn't fight, but because you were protecting your future. Every moment you refused to waste on proving yourself was a deposit into the life you were building. They didn't understand it. They thought silence meant weakness. They mistook distance for fear. They couldn't see that you were choosing battles not based on pride, but on outcome. You were saving your strength for wars that mattered, not small conflicts that would leave you drained but unchanged. Protecting your future meant valuing your energy like currency, and you refused to spend it cheaply. They mocked your discipline. While they indulged in distractions, you turned those temptations into lessons. You skipped the temporary thrill because you saw the trap hidden inside it. They called you boring, robotic, even obsessed. But what they didn't see was the horizon you had your eyes fixed on. Protecting your future meant denying yourself shallow victories so you could build foundations that would not crack under pressure. They settled for comfort in the present. You invested in control of tomorrow. That choice separated you from them forever. In relationships, protecting your future meant you stopped chasing people who were designed to keep you stagnant. They wanted your attention, your validation, your constant effort, but gave little in return. You didn't abandon them from cruelty. You walked away because you saw how much of your tomorrow they were stealing. Every hour spent convincing them of your worth was an hour stolen from the life you could create. Protecting your future meant filtering ruthlessly, removing anchors disguised as partners, friends, and allies. They saw it as coldness. You saw it as survival. At work, protecting your future meant learning skills that nobody could take from you. You didn't get lost in office politics or cheap recognition. You studied while they gossiped. You built networks while they complained. You learned to move strategically, to position yourself where opportunity would find you prepared. They thought you were quiet because you were unsure. You were quiet because you were preparing for a life beyond their imagination. Protecting your future meant becoming undeniable, not by words, but by results. Psychology makes this clear. Most people are wired for immediate rewards. They choose dopamine over discipline, ease over endurance. They want comfort now, and they sacrifice the future to get it. You made the opposite decision. You chose the pain of patience. You chose the discomfort of sacrifice. You chose the silence of steady work. Protecting your future wasn't glamorous, but it was ruthless. It meant denying yourself what you wanted in the moment, so you could secure what you deserved in the long run. They will never understand that cruelty until they face a future they failed to prepare for. They thought you were selfish for saying no, for setting boundaries, for walking away from cycles of chaos. But boundaries are not selfishness. They are architecture. You were building walls to guard what mattered, doors that only opened to the right people, and windows that looked forward, not backward. Protecting your future meant refusing to let your present be dictated by the weak hands of others. They depended on chaos to distract you, but your discipline became armor. Every no you said was not rejection, it was preservation. In love, protecting your future meant demanding more than empty promises. They wanted you to bend for words, but you waited for actions. They wanted you to settle for potential, but you chose patterns. That unsettled them because it revealed their illusions for what they were. You didn't abandon love, you redefined it. Protecting your future meant choosing partners who built with you instead of partners who drained you. It meant walking away even when it hurt, because you knew pain now was better than destruction later. That decision was ruthless, but it saved you. They underestimated how far foresight can take a person. You sacrificed pleasures they couldn't resist. You chose patience in seasons where they demanded instant gratification. You endured loneliness when they filled their emptiness with anyone available. And now, When results begin to show, they call you lucky. But luck is just another word people use when they don't want to admit discipline works. Protecting your future meant you were willing to endure their mockery, knowing one day they would choke on their envy. Every time you stayed calm when they provoked you, every time you walked away from drama, every time you chose work over distraction, you weren't just protecting a moment, you were guarding a destiny. They only saw the surface, but you knew what was at stake. Protecting your future meant protecting your peace, your energy, your clarity. It meant not allowing them to own your attention, because attention is the soil where life grows. And you chose to plant seeds instead of wasting them on weeds. They whisper your name with calculated pauses, watching if your body tenses, if your silence cracks. They will try to bait you into emotional spirals, just to confirm they still hold influence over you. Their goal is not clarity. Their goal is control. They don't want peace. They want evidence that their presence can still bend your mood. Every sharp word, every deliberate silence, every backhanded compliment is designed to pull you into a loop where you explain yourself, defend yourself, and waste yourself. The spiral is not about truth. It is about attention. And the cruel reality is that the more you engage, the more you prove them right. They survive off your reaction the way fire survives off oxygen. Cut the supply, and suddenly they are exposed for what they always were: fragile performers in need of an audience. In relationships, this tactic is sharpened into a blade. A partner who feels their grip slipping may ignite arguments over small things, not to resolve them but to reassert dominance. They need to know they can make you cry, scream, or beg. That confirmation becomes their proof of importance. But when you refuse to spiral, when you stay steady in the face of their storm, you dismantle the very foundation of their control. You stop being a puppet. You stop being a mirror for their chaos. The spiral collapses without your participation, and they are left staring at the hollowness of their own insecurity. That is the cruelty of self-control. It denies them the satisfaction of breaking you. At work or in social circles, the same bait is used differently but with the same goal. A colleague may provoke you with sarcasm in meetings. A rival may spread half truths just to watch if you panic. They want to see if your composure is real or borrowed. They crave your outburst because it validates their sense of superiority. You, however, understand that restraint is not weakness. It is leverage. Every moment you resist spiraling, you are training yourself to become immune to manipulation. And the more immune you become, the more power shifts in your favor. They may try harder at first, but eventually they give up, because fighting someone who doesn't feed the fire is exhausting. Psychology explains this as emotional hooks. They design scenarios that force you to engage on their terms, pulling you into cycles of anger, guilt, or shame. Most people fall into them because ego demands to be heard. You refused. You learned that not every accusation requires an answer. Not every provocation deserves a reply. You chose to break the cycle by denying it fuel. This is why they call you cold or detached. They cannot process that your refusal to spiral is not indifference, but discipline. You are protecting your energy, not because you fear them, but because you know their games are beneath the future you're building. They panic when you stop spiraling, because it means their influence is fading. Influence is fragile. It depends on permission. When you stop permitting someone to dictate your mood, you break their hold without confrontation.